Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another Rambling Bros. This is Jones Cat 79, aka Chris, joined by my usual co-host, Derek, aka The Dark Neon.
Are we really doing this? Are,
Uh, yeah, I'm pretty sure your alternative thoughts to everybody who's seeing the picture in this whole thing is, to quote old Ralph there, "You're all doomed." Anyway, as of this recording, this is being recorded on Friday the 13th in October, no less, and I figured, well, we pretty much started during the Halloween season, and we have a double header today because not only is this the 20th anniversary of one of the most well-known slasher fight flicks in history, but also the 30th anniversary of one of the more redheaded stepchild of the franchise type thing we're talking about. Of course, we're talking about the Friday the 13th movie series, a series that's either trash or gold, depending on your point of view. And if you're a parents groups, it's usually trash.
I Redhead Stepchild is being too generous. Honestly, God.
Yeah, like I said, the one, of course, the entries in mine will be the ninth entry. Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, and I'm sure hearing Final Friday just makes Derek scoff because the last time we heard final in this franchise, it wasn't final enough.
No, I can't. I can't do this. I literally can't. How do you discuss anti-cinema? For God's sakes, this is like a bubble of literal tasteless media. I've had. I literally sat down and watched the entire movie before, and I didn't tell Jonesy this, but I was literally rewatching it just to get a refresher because I, for the love of me, can't remember a goddamn thing that happened in it.
And having watched it now,
And I only can remember half of it. Like, I completely forgot that there was even like a whole scene involving campers going out to Camp Crystal Lake after Jason gets blown up.
yeah. So, of course, what's funny is that a few years ago, I don't know when we started doing a tradition where every Friday the 13th, we would watch a Friday the 13th film using a random wheel. And the one entry Derek always dreaded it landing on was this one because, I mean, if you had to ask any fans of the franchise, this is a pretty, uh, yeah, I mean, but it's where do we even begin with this one? Like you said, he called it anti-cinema. What's funny is I
It makes
myself,
you know how bad it is. It makes Halloween 5 look watchable.
god
Yes,
damn,
I say it. It made Halloween 5 watchable
yeah.
because at the very least when Halloween 5 is playing, at least the soundtrack doesn't look like it's on a goddamn loop. It sounded like it's one of those like electric keyboards that's just playing the sound loop that you just hit the button over and over again. Dun 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 dun.
I mean, it's just usually one theme, but that is iconic, of course. But so yeah, the thing with this movie is that we watched all of them. We included to watch the last year was actually the anniversary of the Jason Takes Manhattan, and we watched
AKA
that.
AKA Jason takes a snooze fest.
Or Jason's on a boat for like an hour and a half of this runtime, and the last 10 minutes are actually what the title is, which is sad because remember that famous New York teaser? It promised a lot, and we're going, wow, a movie of him wrecking carnage. Like, thankfully, a slasher that used that concept actually did use it properly nearly 20 years later with a Scream 6, where Ghostface took on the Big Apple.
Which and yeah, obviously there are probably people who say, yeah, but they didn't do it in like the most notable places. Like there's no like killing at the Statue of Liberty or the Queensboro Bridge or whatever. But it's like it still feels like you're in New York City though.
Yeah.
Shit, they
So
couldn't even do They couldn't even do that right in Jason Takes Manhattan because like even when they arrive in New York, it's a whole section where it's like that dingy ass like dark alleyway that doesn't even feel like it even belongs in New York.
yeah, like you're not gonna feel like you're gonna run into the Ninja Turtles anytime soon. But like I think the one part you can legitimately say was New York is that very famous circle of the Times Square.
Yeah, where you probably have heard stories of Kane Hodder uh, knowing very well that there was like a huge group of people shouting and cheering and seeing Jason while they were filming, and how he swore up and down to not take off the mask or act out of character. Heck, and
Wow,
like every so often you would just kind of look at them, and the crowd just like screaming erupt. It was crazy.
that's great. So obviously, the Friday the 13th franchise was one of Paramount's biggest money makers, but also one of their embarrassments because you had all the parents' rights and editing boards that were saying how this is schlock, it's terrible, it's ruining society. But the thing is, they're so cheap to make. It costs less than a couple of thousand to go into the location with a couple of unknowns and have a guy in a stunt mask, slaughter them. And they managed to keep that formula running for over 8 times. What's funny though is that at the same time in the '80s slasher boom, another fella at an independent studio got a startup, and that would be hell, he was so instrumental to the studio. They call that studio the studio that Freddy built. This is, of course, the Nightmare on Elm Street series. So naturally, you have one strong uh, series of slashers versus another, and people keep wondering who would win in a fight. Like, I think you'd be hearing more who would win between Freddy and Jason versus, say, Michael Myers and anyone else, even though Michael was also running at this time. But by this point, Michael was kind of copying his contemporaries to the point where he almost didn't feel like Michael in some movies. Point to
Well,
Halloween 5.
also to be fair, at the time when the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street zeitgeist were running hot, uh, yeah, Michael was kind of off the radar. He didn't come back until literally his 10-year anniversary, 87.
And by that point,
88. Yeah, 88.
Jason. By that point, Jason was already out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I bring up Freddy because even the studios saw a lucrative idea in pitting two of cinema's greatest horror monsters against each other. I mean, hell, it's been done before in the 30s and 40s when Universal would make Dracula meets Frankenstein or the Wolfman and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, and hell, and Japan's been doing it for years by making big headliner monsters, fight each other in a big thing like Mothra and Godzilla and the like. So, of course, you're going to be wondering, when's Freddy going to fight Jason? Well, the studio has been trying to do that, but it's always a matter of rights, a matter of getting the story right. I mean, hell, we could probably fill up an hour alone with all the possible Jason Freddy scripts that were walking around, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But they had other ideas like Carrie versus Jason, which got reworked into Friday the 13th, The New Blood.
Yep.
And that was supposed to be a Freddy versus Jason, but again, legal stuff and development issues pushed that back and pushed it back. And eventually Paramount said, fuck it, when all their returns were low on Takes Manhattan and the budget and everything, so they figured we'll give it to the studio that knows how to make these movies. Because New Line had already made a killing, pardon the phrase, with all their Nightmare sequels and other stuff and under their label. So naturally, they would be the kind of guys that would like take a slasher film like the Jason series and run with it. Although, funnily enough, even though they gave the Jason character to New Line, I think the rights to the name of this franchise itself were up in the air, like they belong to someone else. So that's why any movie made by New Line was referred to as a Jason movie, like Jason X, Jason Goes to Hell, Freddy versus Jason. So, I mean, if anything was effective at killing Jason in anything, it was legal shit. Because ask any Friday the 13th fan, they'll tell you all about the legal nightmares, including most recently. That thank God it seems like it's finally coming to a head recently.
What do you mean?
Well, I think they settled on that one that had to do with the name thing. Victor Miller, the guy who came up with the name Jason, how he kind of felt shafted, how he pretty much helped co-create this character, yet all he ever got was that one writing credit for the first movie, and no mention or production credit or even any residuals from a character he helped create. So naturally, he felt a little shafted. So of course, to the courts with you. But it was Sean Cunningham, the father and everything of Friday that was like really, you know, saying, well, he just all he did was just write the name, that was it. But that's a whole other topic, and I'm sure there's many other channels that can better capture what all that nightmare is about. But it sounds like they're finally got stuff settled. We might be seeing a Jason project soon in the horizon. But let's go back 30 years in the clock. So Freddy vs. Jason is stalled, and they finally given it to the guys who own Freddy. So they figured, well, we got to have a setup. So to
I
kind of
know. Let's fucking kill him.
yeah, that's the '90s was full of people saying, "Why don't we just kill him?" Like, I still remember that's famously how Batman, the death of Superman, came about when they were talking about different ideas. And the wedding was supposed to be a big thing, but then the Lois and Clark show kind of, was doing their own thing, and they kind of wanted to like co-opt on that, but they couldn't have a story in the meantime. So one guy literally just said, "Why don't we just kill him?" And then Death of Superman was born. But yeah, go on.
No, it's it's not that I would be against the movie where they would kill Jason to set up favor Jason. It's just the fact that they had to add in so much goddamn unnecessary lore catch up. It's like it's a lore dump. It's like, okay, so yeah, Jason's dead, but oh, actually he's not. See, here's what he actually is. Here's the whole backstory. Here's the possibility that Pamela Voorhees used Necronomicon, and oh yeah, here's all the family members that we never once goddamn mentioned like 8 movies past.
Well, that's the weird thing is that it tried to like mythologize Jason in a way that wasn't really necessary. I mean, before that, he was just a guy that was really hard to kill because maybe he was too dumb or numb to pain. He would take axes to the head and stuff, and then they finally macheted his ass in part four. And then when they made him a zombie, well, that was all he ever had to go to it was that Frankenstein's method of resurrection by impaling him with a spike and hitting him with lightning and then you had Tommy Jarvis. In fact, that's probably one of the most baffling things is there's already a sort of lore already existing in the past 8 movies. In fact, the ending of each movie kind of leads into the next one most of the time. And here they decide to say, well, oh, forget all of that. We got our own new lore. We got like this bounty hunter that's been chasing Jason that if he feels like he would have probably been the Tommy Jarvis character or you got this character reference and you're like it's just a big muddled mess. And I'm one of the few guys that actually enjoys Jason Goes to Hell for what it is, but I acknowledge why it could be seen as a big middle finger, which is kind of funny given that it was actually directed by a guy who's been a part of the series since its inception, being he's like one of the young guys that hung out with Cunningham and like had one-to-ones with him. And in fact, he was basically a family member essentially because he was like friends of with Sean's son. And he kind of wanted to throw at things. He called it a picture by the fans for the fans, and he wanted to like aim. We've seen the lake plot played out like 8 movies, so he kind of wanted to shake it up. And appreciative effort, but like you said, it's almost everything but Jason. It's like Jason in name at points when he becomes like this sort of parasitic eldritch entity, like something like Cthulhu or something, rather than just a guy in a wood with knives. Like, keep it simple was what made this series last for so long.
And then they just said, you know what? Let's complicate things. Let's fucking complicate it to the max.
And when it does, like, there's some good ideas that might go somewhere, but then you got stupid rules like only someone of the bloodline can defeat this one thing, which was never a stipulation in the past. Hell, Derek kind of like rolled his eyes when Michael dabbled into that shit with the Thorn cult stuff.
I mean, to be fair, they could have done something really interesting with it. It's just that they didn't know what the fuck they were doing to begin with.
It was clumsy, and I think this was that Adam Marcus' like second movie that he made, so it shows. But yeah, like I said though, so basically the basic gist of it is that Jason does his usual stuff in the beginning, stalking somebody, and chasing after some unsuspecting camper girl. when it's suddenly he's brought into an FBI ambush where they just throw everything at him and blow the fuck out of him, and that's actually cool. But this all happens in the first 5 minutes. Nope, it's like we meet this character, she gets chased, Jason goes there, next thing you know, boom, and you go, wow, yeah. But Derek probably joked, okay, movie's over. That was pretty quick. And you can't deny the opening shootout sequence actually is kind of cool.
Sorry, I blanked out a bit. What were we talking about now?
We're talking about the opening sequence, about how in the just the first 5 minutes alone, you get a lot of action, and it ends with Jason being exploded spectacularly.
Yeah, except when I rewatched it, I thought it could occur to me. So obviously, this camper is a sting agent, but what was it that actually lured Jason in? Because usually it's like the fact that they're like using drugs or just having a premarital fling, but that nothing was going on here.
It just
What did he get reacting just because she got naked to go wash up in the bath? Is that it? Is that all it takes to set him off?
Well, there's a joke in The Many Lives of Jason Voorhees, special feature on Jason X, where Bob Joe Briggs is pretty much pointing out the many ways that can get you a target on Jason's list. Being a guy, deciding to wrestle you're all doomed, eating a banana, drug, of course. If you're a practical joker, your time is long. Being a bitch will get you out. Saying even wearing too much makeup's enough to set off Jason. So yeah, he's basically like the shark from Jaws. He just eats what gets in his path. But you're right. Like Randy and Scream would say, there's a sort of sin factor that it plays like a sort of morality play. So Jason just kind of comes out of nowhere to say like, no clothes, you're it. Although, as much as like, that character was so interesting, for being like the FBI bait agent. That isn't it weird that that's all we see of her and we never see her for the rest of the movie? You think she'd be interested in saying, hey, that guy we blew up is still there's killings matching that guy we blew up. Maybe we should get into it. Like, I helped take that SOB down, so you think she'd be more involved with the plot?
I don't know. She just kind of appears and disappears almost as much as like our ability to actually like know the characters that are introduced in the diner all of a sudden.
Oh yeah.
Like they introduce like the main lead in there, and it's like the Diana, who's apparently related to Jason, says we need to discuss about something about Jessica. It's like, I'm sorry, did we miss a few pages? Who the fuck are you?
Exactly. And then there's this character, Creighton Duke, who some sort of like Texas Ranger looking bounty hunter guy. In fact, I laughed in the Jason Blum Halloween movie because there's a sheriff that dresses a lot like Creighton with that cowboy hat. So I'm going, are they trying to make a jab there? But yeah, what's funny though, again, he talks like somebody that has been doing this for a long time, and he feels like we should know him, but we just met the guy. But in fact, a lot of these characters we just met. And then there's of course, the other lead, the father of the child character here. I jokingly say he resembles James Rolfe's video game nerd like heavily, but he's wearing like a varsity jacket.
Yeah. Which, by the way, obviously this is probably a known factoid, but the main actor here was actually one of the characters in Friday the 13th series. But no, it's not actually the same character. It's just the actor that was in Friday the 13th series is now in a movie that the series is even named after.
It's kind of weird that series never at least had one point to Jason, like not even like his mask or nothing. It just like you would think, because even the logo of the series is the same as the logo for the old movie. So you figured, I know they're going for like some anthology thing, but at least Freddy's Nightmares at least featured the title character as the Master of Ceremonies, the Crypt Keeper style. But yeah, so this movie, like it says, it throws a lot at you really fast, and you're going. But everyone likes to say, yeah, well, Well, slasher films are kind of like porn. You're not really paying attention to the finer beats of the story. I mean, that's an insult to horror movies if you think that way, but there's people who think with slashers, you're just there to see the blood and gore. Well, that is one thing Jason Goes to Hell does have in spades, at least, is when they get, well, if you, depending on the cut you watch, because like every Friday movie,
Oh
this one,
yeah, the cut I watched was on HBO Max. Sorry, the Max. But whenever Jason is getting shot, blown to pieces, yeah, no blood. I just had to go like, really? Okay, I know the censors are stingy ass motherfuckers, but you could do it on like this grotesque inhuman monster, which is like your loophole for uh getting around showing blood excessively.
well, because like one famous kill in this movie is where a female character gets like a railroad spike ran through her while she's in the middle of doing the do. And in the censored cut, you hear her cry and you see the guy get splattered with her blood. But in the unrated cut, you actually see a faraway shot of her, you know, getting split by the railroad yard, and then the guy cuts back to the guy getting covered in blood. But yeah, I mean that's there's only a few cuts, believe it or not. It's not a whole lot was cut out, but that was one of the more violent like MPA guys going. Yeah, another one was a more violent headshot that had a little more goo behind it. So, it, which there's a couple of headshots here, and I think a longer shot of a body dissolving. That was like all the MPA told him you gotta snip that, which is so weird. At least this one is more violent than the last one, because hell, 8 had a lot of cutaway kills. Where even you're going, I know the MPA was on your ass, but are you guys seriously just almost? If it wasn't for the cussing and some of the nudity, I think you could have made Takes Manhattan PG-13, a high PG-13, but I think you could have made it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, the only other, I mean, hell, one guy gets his head knocked off like a cartoon character, and that's barely even bloody as it is. But in this one,
I forgot. Was there actually any nudity in that movie?
in Manhattan,
Yeah, at least topless. We're talking about here.
I think the one shower girl in one scene, but that's about it.
Okay, that's probably where they got it.
Yeah, but this one, it doesn't skimp on what you usually expect: the cussing, the violence, the boobs, because there are some two campers that help. But you're gonna probably facepalm. That whole sequence with the campers was added later after the fact, when I think even the studio said nobody has died in like 20 minutes. And where's the campers? Isn't I think a test audience when they saw the first cut, didn't like that there wasn't any of the tropes. I mean, well, obviously, so they figured, well, we gotta throw in like one camping scene, and sadly, other than the fact that it's Jason in someone else's body, that probably feels like the most like a traditional Friday the 13th scenario, doesn't it?
Yeah, but then it gets cut with seeing this random dude that literally has no iconography behind him, just kind of wandering around like an nameless monster.
Yeah, because the idea that the bold idea was that even though Jason's body was destroyed, his evil still permeates him, and he infests other bodies. Like the coroner's hypnotized into eating his heart, and gets the spirit ripped out of Jason's corpse into him, and he
Which,
starts. Go
which I
on.
know that we're kind of like building up a whole like, oh, Jason is so evil that he's literally like this like parasitic being, but it's like if you actually step back, it's like, is he that evil though? I mean, it's, most of the time it's just acting territorial in most of his movies.
Yeah,
He doesn't even go after the kids in like part 6 when he's resurrected. You know, the
well,
campground is actually full and high and mighty and active.
and people would be all like, "But in New Blood, well, that was an impersonator, so you can't really say New Blood either."
Exactly.
But New Beginning, sorry, not New Blood, New Beginning. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
No,
If anyone
I
is
knew what you were talking. I knew what you were
if
talking about, but
if anyone is evil of the slashers of the '80s, like unabashedly evil, it's Freddy.
well, him and Michael Myers. But even then, at that time, like they were kind of leaning heavily towards like, oh, it's like it's a family. It's all in the family. It's all about the family. Jesus, that. that part of the franchise is steeped in family more than Fast and the Furious got.
It's all about family, Tom. Yeah. So, what was I saying? But yeah, you're right. There's the idea that his evil spirit, like, it does do this cool little effect where when people would pass by reflective surfaces, you would see Kane Hodder and the Jason makeup like walk by. And yeah, so it was even funnier though in that opening when in his POV as he's leaving the morgue, some of the guards are shit talking him. One of the guards shit talking him is in fact Kane Hodder out of makeup. He's the fellow with the beard.
Eh.
And he ends up getting killed too. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, so it's funny is this was around the time of the 90s when people were starting to get like meta on like horror crap. I mean, hell, a year later after this movie, we'd get the very wonderful New Nightmare by Wes Craven where they would poke at some of the tropes. And even this, like you got the main character picking up some hitchhikers and they're going to Crystal Lake and he's talking to them a joke, we want to smoke up some dope, have some premarital sex and get slaughtered, and they're like, yeah, we're doing that without getting slaughtered, and then they still do. But see, they're like trying to like, say, look, like a wink and nudge to the audience, like you get what we're talking about. But thankfully, that type of stuff was more better done in movies like New Nightmare and Scream, most famously.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and what's funny is that so most of the movie, and there's other weird things like there's a strange scene where Jason's body like kidnaps a police officer and he like ritualistically shaves him and stuff before doing his parasitic passing, and you're like, it
But
feels
what? Why? Why though?
the ritualistic shaving is the weird part to me. Like what would have been cool is if the evil infesting people would like make their head deform the way Jason's does. That either way he would require the mask, even and no matter what body he takes. Wouldn't that been like an interesting take on that concept?
It would have at least kept the mask being more
Oh,
viable.
and that's another thing. The trailers and the poster had this epic chrome mask with some evil slug thing in it, and you're going like, "Ooh, I wonder how that figures into it." No, it's not even the mask that Jason wears at the beginning or end. Oh my god, it's such a cool looking chrome mask. If you watch like the covers or the posters or that famous trailer that shows horror wears one mask, and it's not in the movie. Yeah,
Can
but
we also discuss about Jason's design too? Like, okay, you know, what? I'm fairly convinced. Like, obviously, this would be predating slightly before the Super Mario Brothers with Bob Hoskins, but I'm almost convinced this is originally going to be a screenplay for the Splatterhouse video game because it looks exactly like the freaking Johnny character.
on top of that, Jason is way more bulbous. He's got like tumorous growths like covering all his body, and his head is like shaping around the mask. And what's weird, even weirder, the mask still has the injury points it got from past movies. But if you watch the ending of 8, you're just left scratching your head. Well, then again, 8 just that whole thing's another can of worms. Yeah, yeah, I know. To best sum it up, that one Mystery Science Theater line, they just didn't care.
No,
Cause
I'll tell you how much they didn't care. Like, they're apparently the writers were trying to insinuate a soft crossover between Friday the 13th and Evil Dead by inciting that the Halo 4 he's found somehow managed to get the Necronomicon Ex Mortis and essentially explained that all this time Jason is a Deadite. But even that's fucked up because no, in no single Evil Dead property does a Deadite even act the way that Jason does.
if anything, they're always mocking and taunting, and they have
They're
personality.
all, oh god, they're fucking chatterboxes. They would not shut up. Clearly, the exact opposite of what Jason is going for. Shit, they're not even like parasitic worms at all.
Yeah, and apparently there was a deleted scene that involved Jason's demonic form being a much more like actually bigger. Because if you watch the trailers for this movie, just this one shot where you see this demonic monster like roaring its mouth, and that is Jason. And I guess for some reason that didn't work, so they reworked it into that little parasite baby that goes up the hooter of the dead relative. Oh yeah, me just saying that you're like yeah. I mean, like, there's only really two sequences that are like really noteworthy, and that is, of course, the opening, and then there's the end fight when Jason does come back to life. Oh, and the Kandarian dagger is there too, and I think these props actually were from Evil Dead. So to try to say, look, 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 and of course, even I know people like to point out that was just Sam and people being cute when there was Freddy's glove and machete and the chainsaw all hanging, like to say, look at all these other horror people. And that wouldn't finally be realized until those Army of Darkness comics.
Yeah.
But oh man, like you said, it's funny they're so low budget, but they at least had a good budget for the crazy effects they pulled at the end of the movie when like they stab Jason and all these lights are coming out and these hands of hell start coming up and yeah, but
Actually,
it
they ain't even hands of hell. They look more like they're the hands of the rock biter from Neverending Story.
or the thing like it's clobbering time as they're grabbing Jason. But oh man, like I said though, the merciful thing about Jason Goes to Hell is that it is short, very short actually. And there's a few moments that are like baffling, like when the parasite passes, the bodies just disintegrate horribly, which would be great for like a Lovecraftian horror movie. But you're going, this is a Jason
What's
movie,
this?
right?
What the fuck is this doing in a Friday the 13th movie?
This feels like it should be in like some Call of Cthulhu type stuff. And then of course there's another scene that's like really out there. Like, oh, there is a funny part where Jason, well, possessed by some sneaky TV guy, he, I don't know if it was a TV guy or if it was someone else,
Yeah.
where he eviscerates that entire diner.
Oh yeah.
That
It's like, I. Alright, you know what? The one fight effect that I just can't seem to understand. How the hell does bashing two people's guys' heads together suddenly create like bloody cheeks? Like those cheeks weren't even touching that close.
I know. At least one person got the air fryer death, the oil frying oil type death. But yeah. And also, this does have the one moment where people say, in a way, Jason, quote unquote, speaks when he was possessing one of the police officers that still looked freshly
Oh
alive.
god, that pissed me off so much. That
Yeah,
like how? Why? No.
yeah, yeah. Like the guy says, put her down. He says a full sentence and everything, and then she slashes his neck, and turns out, oh, he's infested by the Jason parasite. But yeah. Oh, and then there's a funny moment where, like, again, Creighton Duke, he acts like a character that we probably should have been following for movies on in, but he's only here in this movie, and he talks to Jason like, "Hey, you remember me? You killed my sister," to Jason, and I'm just thinking,
No, because your whole backstory was deleted.
yeah, and he's basic. I think the original idea was that Creighton Duke was supposed to be a grown-up version of another character in the franchise, but or he's related to like one of the biker chick. It was like you said, it was cut out. It was clunky as heck, and he's a cool character, but he's again out of place. He feels like he should be side by side with Chuck Norris in a Texas Ranger episode. And oh man, like I said though, it is way out there, but and fans have eviscerated ever since it came out. But there is one redeeming thing. Well, not redeeming. People always talk about this one moment. After Jason is seemingly vanquished, you have a little dog like sniffing at his mask in the sand, and then out of the sand comes Freddy's glove as he grabs it, laughing, taking the mask to hell. And for everybody, that was
You
like,
you motherfuckers are so lucky that movie actually happened. Otherwise, this would have been the biggest teasing dick blow in history. Like it would have been almost on par with I Am Legend having that like Superman with Batman billboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, like I said, that it wouldn't be as bad. Like, this would have been the worst thing, even worse than Black Adam. Let's talk. But yeah.
Ooh,
Oh yeah.
to break that up.
Too soon, too soon. I'm sorry. uh, but yeah. The thing is that it's very weird how it tries a lot of new things, but it doesn't implement them well. And all the old stuff it does bring back is either too tired or it's not the same because it's like parading around in another flesh suit, and you're going like, some of this would be cool if it was Jason, like in the Jason form, and yeah, you get him for the last 10 minutes. And apparently people did come up to Adam Marcus, and there's people saying like, oh, it's too different. But then he said there's some people that actually said, oh, thank God it's different because they wanted it to feel like getting the old Jason back was a prize. He said, and I understand what he was trying to do, and he does understand the backlash. He does understand how it may have left a bad taste in his mouth, but he really was just trying to shake things up for the benefit of the franchise, and ended up making something that was a little more off kilter than was usual. I mean, thankfully it wasn't enough to kill the franchise, but it was enough to turn people saying, "Oh, thank God!" Like I think a review said, "Final Friday." Let's hope so. But yeah, like I said, as you can tell by Derek's reaction, like I said, he's lucky that this is attached to the next thing we're going to talk about, because if it was just about this one, this would be probably a pretty short ramble. He said all he had to say about it. He barely remembers it. The stuff he does remember pisses him off, and the other stuff just confuses and baffles him. Like, why would you do that? Like I said, though, that ending shot.
It's sad that the only thing that's even worse than that movie, in my own opinion, is VHS Viral. Oh God.
Oh, damn,
Fucking hell.
damn. Oh yeah. So, obviously, who would have thought if you were like a teenager or a kid or a 20-year-old seeing that ending to Goes to Hell and say, well, that's the next one. When's that going to happen? And having to wait basically 20 years for that to come out. I hope it was worth it if you waited 20 years. But yeah, hell, I remember that people were actually miffed that when they did announce a Jason movie, it was Jason X, basically Jason Goes to Space, and they're like, what happened to
Huh?
what happened to Jason versus Freddy? You said you were.
We don't have to talk about that. That never happened. Bad memory. Let's just enjoy the fact that we're chasing the trend that freaking Leprechaun did.
Yeah, yeah, basically. And rest the soul of Todd, of the guy who directed it. He's since passed away, and he made an entertaining schlock film. But I hate to say this, is we don't. The only way we would cover Jason X is if we were covering the whole series as a whole, because there's not a whole lot to talk about that in that one. And we're not here to talk about it, but I'm saying I only bring it up because it was brought up as the in-between movie while the New Line was barely sorting out the script to get Freddy vs. Jason to happen. There was so many things. There was a weird one that involved a cult that called themselves the Fred Heads, and they wanted to like tie it to the new millennium. Hell, there was a point where Jason was going to be on trial and everything. There's a whole. I'm sure you can find a video with about like 20 or so different scripts of what would have been Freddy vs. Jason all throughout the 90s, and they finally settled on an idea in 2000s when they got Bride of Chucky director Ronnie Yu to make Freddy vs. Jason. So now we're going to talk about this. Now Derek can come out of his protective shell and say, now here's something he'd actually enjoy talking about.
Oh yes, definitely. Hopefully, if I don't die from my coughs, but
Yeah, I didn't think Jason Goes to Hell was that bad. I'm kidding. I'm
uh,
kidding.
dude, I'm pretty sure rewatching it almost kind of killed me.
Like if you were like you don't drink, but if you were taking a shot for every stupid thing that movie did, you probably would have had alcohol poisoning by the 40-minute marker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, this was actually one of the first Friday the 13th movies slash Nightmare movies I owned on DVD. And I mean, I've seen the series before on TV, channel surfing, or brother watching VHS tapes, but this This was like, you know, really, I mean, come on, the poster was cool. Mhm.
Which one was it? Where they're facing each other, or where it's? Oh wait, no, it's with the claws against the mask, right?
I mean, that the one I had was the one with the faces, but there was another poster that it's just their silhouettes with bright light behind them, but it just has a big old verses between them. Hell, I remember seeing the trailer and thinking this is really happening when they did the in 1980. Fear was born in 1984. No one ever slept again, and they started like saying these two will meet face to face, and you actually see that one brief shot of them in the fire, and it says "Welcome to my nightmare," and then the whole footage happens, and you're like, well, dang, and it's definitely one of the slickest movies of the franchise in terms of look, and it's definitely my favorite Robert Englund performance as the character outside of his primary series.
Right.
So, yeah, basically, it's so funny. You're thinking, why did it take over 20, 30 years to develop a story that would, work for people?
Well, to put it simply, like yes, in a way, they were both slashers. They're slashers of a different medium. One was essentially, let's have a formula. Basically, we'll have like teenagers go to a campsite, they fuck around, and Jason comes around and tells them to find out. Whereas in a Nightmare on Elm Street, you get this a little bit more complicated scenario where it's like delving into teenagers dealing with their own self doubts and pities and having to go against their social norms, their parents, assuming they know what's best for them, and you have this figure that's really haunting them, and it's causing them to have to either like handle it themselves or band together as outsiders in to basically deal with the problems on their own. As essentially is almost a metaphor of figuring out how to handle life on your own.
So, in a strange way,
So it's
Fire.
essentially, yes, it that the way I described Nightmare on Elm Street does apply to every single entry movie. That's why I pointed out in a panel to like most of the cast of Nightmare on Elm Street, including Robert Englund, the fact that uh, I totally pointed out that I felt like the reason like their franchise uh, endured so well is that they actually knew their audience. They actually wrote the characters as not like a cannon fodder, but actually people with actual wants and needs and desires, and
That's great.
that's
Like I,
how
I
they
was gonna, so I was gonna jokingly say, basically, Nightmare on Elm Street for the '80s was what Stranger Things is for the current generation, right? In a sort of way.
yeah. You think about it that way,
Yeah, but also you
but
also one of the.
basically you're putting a schlocky like run of the mill like go by the numbers like hit beat for beat word for word against something that has a little bit more of a
Nuance.
more wit to it.
Yeah, and like I said though, you're right. Is that there's two beasts. Like I said, you gotta admit when it comes to sequels and horror icons, pound for pound, I think Freddy has more hits than misses when it comes to his sequels. It didn't take till like movie six for him to start being a little, trite because they were pretty much making fun of themselves at that point. But for the most part, when it comes to slashers and
Well, yeah,
their
but I think even with let's see for
Freddy's
uh
dead.
Freddy's dead obviously, but like they were basically like making fun of themselves in a way because they were uh hyping up the fact that this is the end of like a horror icon.
Yeah, like I thank God for New Nightmare because one of my favorite shots in that movie is when Heather Langenkamp is visiting a interview talk show and Robert Englund in full Freddy makeup shows up and there's this nice shot of like him from behind with a silhouette while saying the "You're all my children" line. There's something about that slow mo shot of Heather reacting to that. It just God bless you, Wes Craven, rest your soul. But yeah, thing is, you're right. It's like Freddy is not exactly high dining, but it is a higher caliber meal versus the cheeseburger fast food nature of a Friday movie.
Exactly. And so essentially, you're trying to pit these two together, but how would you do that? Basically, the point we're trying to make is the fact that it's which way are you going to swing to? Are you going to make the movie feel like it's a Friday the 13th movie with starring Freddy in it, or are you going to make it a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, but all of a sudden this hockey mask slasher arrives and fucks things up?
To quote the meme joke, yes. Literally, it is both approaches. They found a way to try to kind of blend it both.
Yeah, after almost like what 10 drafts.
Because one draft was definitely a more Freddy film with a. It was pretty much called Nightmare 7. And Jason was almost a guest character in that one, and that would have been disappointing for the fans of Jason. And there's another one where it was a little too schlocky, and Freddy didn't really, get to do his stuff the way he normally does. So, again, you had to kind of play.
Oh, and one of them was literally a fucking court case because, O.J. Simpson was a hot commodity. Yes, I know you're all shaking your head hearing that. That was literally what was going on in the writer's room.
Well, at least, I mean, they made fun of it in Scream 2 where Mickey was obsessed saying it's going to be not about the movie, it's going to be about the trial. Oh, Mickey, there isn't going to be a trial. But, oh, man. But yeah, so it is rather simple, but it's a cool idea that Freddy is powered by belief and fear. And the idea is that he's trapped in hell because he's killed all the people that he's been after, and no one else, and the people of Springwood have been doing a good job of keeping his memory forgotten. So he has no way to get out of hell. So the idea to get out of hell is to wake up another agent of hell to kill people and make people think, oh no, it's him. And those whispers would give him enough strength to breach back into full power, which is a cool idea when you think about it.
It would be much cooler if we didn't flat out hear the plan right at the fucking gate.
Oh yeah, he does tell you everything. But the sad thing is, Freddy didn't realize just how good Jason was at his job to the point where he realized, okay, now you're just stealing my thunder, so you got to go.
It's like stealing thunder. No, he pretty much just essentially crashed the fucking party at the farmhouse.
Which he actually does in this movie. But yeah, so the thing is that yeah, but it seems like a simple prospect, but it works, and it does go back to Nightmare 1's technique, where the fear of Freddy is what gave him his power. When Nancy decided to say, "I'm not afraid of you anymore," that's only when he ended in that one. I like the idea that that's part of what keeps him going in this timeline.
By the way, are we going to discuss how fast Springwood jumped back after basically being the town with no kids?
Well, it's been. I'm guessing it's set in present day 2003 at the time it was made. So a lot can happen in 20 years, 10 years. But
Well,
man,
actually, no, because when Freddy's Dead happened, they put it in 1990, but it's saying that 10 years from now. So it's essentially that's 2000 that we're supposed to be seeing.
oh damn, it did bounce back in 3 years, I guess. Oh, but yeah. So what's funny is it does give you your cannon fodder in like. There's a great moment, homaging Jason, where we see like the camper in the beginning, skin, being, lewd, getting nude, and then getting attacked by Jason, and then we find out that what's funny is that Jason gets communicated to by his mother. Freddy has the mother, and they did contact Betsy Palmer to reprise the role, but I think she didn't want anything to do with the franchise at this point, or they weren't offering enough for her to even say, why am I going to come back to this for like 5 minutes, like not just role but like payment. I think like hell she barely got enough payment for her role in the first Friday, so yeah. But Pamela Voorhees has always been recast most of the time, but like the head in part 3 barely resembles Betsy Palmer, if you ask me. But I think the lady they picked did give you the same exact vibe, and also none of people are going to say I thought he was taller, and he was. The fact that this is not Kane Hodder, unfortunately, and behind the mask, but stuntman, fellow Canadian stuntman Ken Kersinger
Wait,
as
it's isn't Ken a little bit taller than Kane?
he is. I was kind of making a reference to Stan Lee, Captain America joke, but he is like, oh my God, is it me or has he gotten bigger? Yeah, and that was actually a controversial point for fans is the fact that we got Jason, but it's not the Jason who's been campaigning for this for ever. Like hell. I mean, it's sad when you watch the documentary Many Lives of Jason Voorhees on the Jason X thing, and they're talking about how Freddy versus Jason is coming up, and even he says, "Man, I want this thing to get going," because Kane's all giddy saying, "I want to kick Freddy's ass." And apparently, he did do a test in Jason makeup, and there's conflicting reports. There's some saying that Ronnie Yu felt that Kane's eyes were too intense. If you watch Jason X, you can agree with that, but you can't really get too much. I think he wanted Jason to be the sympathetic underdog of the two because Freddy's the evil shit talker and the mastermind. You need to have sort of like the underdog that you kind of root for, and he thought that maybe Kane was a little too intense. But I think Kane did see the performance in an interview and in a recent thing, and he said he didn't really see anything that different than he would have done with Ken because he said I watched it thinking maybe I'll see what he saw like what they saw. But in reality, I think it was that Kane is only like maybe a couple of inches taller than Robert. The director or the cinematographer, someone wanted to have that vision of like David and Goliath. You have you know Freddy up here and Jason way up there, which it is a more dynamic image. But like you said, though, it's kind of sad that Kane played this stuff for 4 movies and he was getting ready to get ready for the crossover and he never got. Apparently, either the studios didn't want him or he clashed with the director's vision for what he had in mind, or it just didn't work out. Hell, when I went to go actually meet Kane Hodder, I was mostly talking about how I love his work in Seven through X and all that stuff. I said X is one of my favorites, and I mentioned the makeup, and he said, yeah, that the Uber Jason did was a bit of a tough thing to perform in. I try my best not to bring up Freddy versus Jason, given you know that I think it's not that sore for him now, but I was just propping him for the stuff he did do. And by the way, it's funny. I didn't think he was that tall sitting down. So then we go to talk to the fellow Brian Prince who played the Predator in The Predator, the Fugitive Predator, and I feel these two big hands grab my shoulders. Excuse me, just step aside for a second. And there's Kane, and he is tall when he stands up. I'm like, oh, and he's
Yeah,
swiftly
but
fast too.
yeah, but have you actually been in the presence of Ken before?
Now I'm sure Ken is
Oh my
awesome,
God, he is huge! Like,
and
holy shit!
and when you went to go see him at that one convention, was he in the Jason makeup?
Um, not no, not that I'm aware of. I think he only gets into costume whenever he's gonna
The,
do photo ops.
the photo ops.
We were seeing him at his table, so
The one that you did see was Tom Morga, right?
yeah, the part
Roy
5.
Burns. Yeah, Roy Burns, imposter Jason. But yeah, he said he too was taller than you expected too.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and he also had the physicality too. It's like posing for like the Brave versus Jason versus Ash. It's like he had my arm pretty good. I was like, oh, okay, I can see why a lot of these victims never got that far away from these guys.
in fact, I think it would be nice if Tom Morga got another shot at Jason. I mean, I think now he's a little, maybe it's a little too much for him, but it would have been nice if he got another shot at in one of the other films, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but he did get to play actual Jason for Tommy's visions, so in a way, yeah, he did get to go. So, um, yeah. So anyway, I bring up Ken just to bring up Ken Kritzinger is a taller and his eyes do kind of give off a more sympathetic edge. I mean, I can't help but feel sorry for Jason when Freddy, as his mom, is berating him, and he has a look of like I'm sorry, like the body language is there. In fact,
And then once Freddy shows up, he has that look. You're like, you used my mother.
yeah. And like I said, it's so funny how everybody has their favorite sides, but I feel like unless you're like a diehard Fred head, you can't help but kind of root for Jason, even though he is just a mindless killing machine that will slaughter anybody in his path. But you can't help but feel for the guy.
Yeah, but I did kind of root for Freddy for a bit.
But yeah,
If nothing else, because he only has like what 2 kills to his name in this movie. Basically, like not
he only killed Mark, the friend of Will.
right. He has, well, I mean, we did have that flashback of him killing uh,
Laurie's
Laurie's
mother.
mother.
Yeah, you're right. Freddy only has 2 kills in the whole movie, which is kind of a. Jason got a good share of the blood in this one.
Well, to be fair, Freddy does have like the least number of kills because the characters that he's killing actually, you know, have that. Oh, what's that word? What's the word that I'm thinking of that not a lot of the Friday the 13th characters have? Oh yeah, character.
Yeah. So,
So
I think
like,
they.
you know, are you really gonna sit there and tell me that you felt bad that Kevin Bacon's character died in Friday the 13th as opposed to Johnny Depp in freaking Nightmare 1?
Well, we only care now because Kevin's a big guy now, but at the time, he was just, Joe Blow number 3. But yeah, the thing is that, yeah, you're right. I will say this: the characters in Freddy vs. Jason are written like the Nightmare characters, so there's a little more depth to them. I mean, you got your clicks, you got the friend, the best friend, you got you know, the
I think
skeptic.
Yeah, I think you only have like at least one or two characters that feel like they belong in a Friday the 13th film. Like you have the stoner guy who everyone keeps. Uh, I'll, I always laugh at the Never Sleep Again Legacy documentary where they joke that it's the supposed to be the dude is supposed to be a stand-in for the actor that does uh, Jay of Jay and Silent Bob fame.
Jason Mewes.
Yeah, it's like wait, I was in that movie. What the fuck was?
He does look a lot like the way they made Freeberg. He basically is that character. And like I said, and who's the other stock character you felt was like a Jay's Friday 13th character?
Uh,
Maybe the first victim boyfriend, I guess.
Probably.
The guy that got the very famous bed kill, which is a cool kill where he like just splits the bed in half with the guy still on it and just makes him a sandwich. Yeah, but I really do like the main girl, Laurie, because she kind of does have a bit of a vulnerability to her performance. Monica Keeley playing her, I believe. And
I actually also did get to meet Laurie's actress too.
yeah, and then there was Jason Ritter, the famous son of John Ritter, who plays Will. I think he makes for an interesting leading man. A little generic, but he's very nice. In fact, if anything, he reminded me of Josh Hartnett as Laurie's son, John. But yeah, so basically the story is that the cops and the parents have done a good job at keeping Freddy under wraps, and you got Optimus Primal actor Gary Kalk, scolding the new guy, saying we've dealt with the son of a bitch before, we'll deal with him again, and pretty much they locked all the unhelpable cases up in their psychiatric ward at Weston Hills, which if you remember Nightmare 3, you're all like, what?
Oh, Joy, Weston Hills. Yeah, they're so integral to keeping all those young, poor, unfortunate souls alive while they were being haunted by their nightmares.
And then Hypnosil
Oh
makes a
wait, no,
return.
they fucking did it.
They just locked them away and threw away the keys just so they can say, "Oh, it never happened. It never happened." And
Also, they did show exactly why Hypnosil isn't FDA approved still. Turns out overdosing on them causes you to be left in a state of never-ending coma.
hmm imagine Freddy catching you in a never-ending coma. Dang. But yeah, I think the real star though is the title characters in Jason and Freddy, and Robert Englund just plays the character beautifully in this movie. It's really the last time he played the character on screen in makeup. I mean, for a movie, he did do a couple of guest spots and a couple of for charity events in the makeup, but when you want to count it, this is kind of the last time he played the character in the movie with the full makeup and everything. And it's one of my personal favorite looks for him. I don't know why. I really do like the look he's got on this one.
Maybe because it looks a little bit more like it's getting back to the burn victim look rather than, oh, okay, let's just add some red here or there, maybe some pizza sauce there. Okay, we're done.
The worst one was Freddy's Dead, I think, sadly. It barely, his makeup barely.
I would say it's probably because he's absorbed so many young children's souls that he's probably reforming his skin a little bit.
But yeah, now this being a 2000s movie, it does suffer from a funny bit of dodgy CG that I think it was meant to be dodgy on purpose. Like, for example, the Freddy pillar that Freeberg sees in his high state. Hello. You're welcome. Glad you're there. At least you guys got to talk to guys. All right. Sorry about that. Anyway, so you were saying?
Nothing. I was actually kind of waiting this time.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, I had to step aside a sec, but yeah. And there's a couple of kills that require CG that you go like, okay, that is a little, but it happens so fleetingly that.
Oh, there's that one moment where the claw marks just scratched against that dude's face, where he's like slowly staring back at the main characters.
But that actually is a good CG moment. But there's a few moments where you go like, okay, it's kind of a little funny looking, but that's maybe the point. Like I said, the Freddy pillar's a really funny moment. And there's a point where Freddy's like tossing Jason around in the dream world so fast he looks like a pinball. But that's meant to be fun. Because if you notice, in all the Nightmare movies, even though they're horrifying, Freddy does have a sick dose of humor. So he'll like throw in something a little ironic or funny in his kills. Like hell, even killing this guy, he burned a message Freddy's back on the guy's back.
Yeah. Why did that only just
see you in the morning.
Get to me right now? Oh my god. Right. But yeah, talking about that fight, it is pretty smart that they decided to write in at least two fights. And I'm sure a lot of people were complaining that, oh, there's not a lot of fighting in what we call Freddy versus Jason. But to be fair, they kept it on even ground. There's like the first round that takes place in Freddy's domain, which is like seeing this unstoppable force getting pelted and like made it into a chump in the dream world, but still is swinging and kicking. You know, it literally does nothing to Freddy. He literally starts off getting his arms cut off, but he'll just say, it's no big deal. I can just grow another pair. Zoink!
Yeah.
You know, it's strange, but I kind of actually enjoy the old arm. Guess I'll have to break it in.
And oh man, like I said, they play to the strength of both characters. Hell, I like Freddy's near miss kills, like when he almost killed that one friend at the party, and she plays it so vulnerable and so sweet. I'm like, oh, I don't want to see nothing bad happen to her. And Freddy almost gets her in the locker, and Jason's kill ends up interrupting the dream, and he got pissed about his kill being taken right from he was just about to, and then she kind of just blood splatters all over his face. So funny how a death in the real world like took her out in the okay, screw that thought, perish the thought, but you know what I mean. Again, I love how that rave guy just flies like a goofy character when Jason impales him and they go together and he lifts the guy and the guy just like, what? All it's missing is the wah as he flies through the air. But like I said, there's a bit of humor in some of the kills. Like hell, one of the funniest kills is when those two stoners are in the cornfield and they're making fun of how hillbilly Jason looks, and Ronnie Yu says Jason's always thought of as a slow character, so in order to like shock people and be funny, imagine him suddenly moving with ninja reflexes. And in this case, he makes the guy pull a Reagan and just goes 180 his head in mid sentence. Even the other guys are like, holy shit, when he saw that. It is that is one of the funnier moments to me is when he kills those two guys in the cornfield, and he does get a nice kill where he's like set on fire, but he's just walking through the cornfield while on fire. Although one dodgy thing about that is you can kind of see the fire retardant makeup suit goggles in the mask and everything if you look closely, but you're too mesmerized by the fire that you're not really looking for that.
I think you're too mesmerized by the deaths going on
Oh, also
and the chaos.
that's a record-setting, on fire moment right there too. Like for in terms of Friday the 13th stunts, that stunt man, it wasn't Ken, I think it was another fella, but he was on fire on screen for a good number of minutes, seconds, to, like count as a record. Like it wasn't enough to actually break a record, but pretty close. But point is, it's an impressive scene. Um, and like I said, what did you think of the Freddy set pieces where he was like, doing his dream shtick?
Mostly covered in red, which is very fitting considering that's we have seen that many times before. Although
Oh,
I feel like they kind of went a little bit too much on the red, because like even like the original Nightmare stuff, that like there was that like haze and Hello Shellfire thing going on, but it didn't. It wasn't like the turned the whole hue into one tone.
yeah, maybe. But and I like how the tone changed when Jason broke the water pipe and it went to greenish blue. But okay, well, I think the only true traditional dream sequence was like, Mark's dream when he's the one guy who's been worried about Freddy for the whole time, and then he ends up being the one guy that gets taken out by him, and he's got like memories of his brother who committed suicide after dealing with
Holy,
Freddy.
holy shit! Is that fucking Scott Farkas from Christmas Story?
Yep. And I do love his little bit when he made fun of him. Then you were taught not to wait. I don't know if this was a deleted scene or they kept it in the movie where he says you're not supposed to talk with your mouth full and he like vomits a bunch of like worms and snakes up.
Oh, but the way it's just uh mocking Mark is like you just can't help but feel like I feel like there's gonna be someone that's gonna dump in like Farkas's like mocking Ralphie of going to cry. Oh wait, no, Doug Walker already did that.
Yeah. Although I gotta say though, um, again, Robert Englund does a good job when he's like, you know, there's a lot of people that parrot Robert, and he has to like be the voiceover for them, and he always makes the performance sound natural. And then, oh, that's right, you all forgot about me. That's why I had to get Jason, but now he just won't stop that hockey puck. Yeah, he has a lot of good quotables, and also it's so funny how the father character for Laurie just has like a creepy vibe. I wouldn't say like pedo vibe, but he just gives off an off kilter vibe where you're not sure you can trust him or not. Like he says, you should. He's insisting you should really go to bed, and you're like, I don't think they meant for the guy to have a sinister undertone, but it's kind of funny how he did have that sinister undertone. So you really didn't know if it was really him or just Laurie picturing, because every now and then Freddy's face would like superimpose over people that because she's so traumatized by seeing him for the first time that she's just seeing him everywhere. Now, yeah, so like Freddy has some great lines in this one too. Like there's a bit where when she sees in the flashback that it wasn't her father killing the mother like Will said he saw, but Freddy. And he's like, I have a thing about all the whores in this house. Something to that effect.
I've always had a thing for whores in this house.
Yeah.
Which
And
I gotta say, how is it that house just seems to get sellers? Like nobody ever mentions. Oh yeah, the furnace here once stored the infamous set of murdering claws that belonged to a serial killer. Anyway, let's move on to the dining room.
yeah, but another thing too, Freddy also gains a sort of quote unquote demonic farm form, demonic form with like
Oh yeah,
more.
where it kind of looks like he's a little bit more of his new nightmare form, which
Yeah,
kind of reveal like, oh yeah, it turns out it's this Jin that's actually trapped in this franchise.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so you see, like, because he only gains that
Why?
form
Wait, why is it that like Nightmare on Elm Street can pull off a complicated like lore dump, but Friday the 13th couldn't?
because it was simple and they complicated it needlessly. That's why. Whereas,
Oh yeah, and also the lore dump came from Wes Craven.
mhm. Yeah. So, yeah, the Nightmare Freddy demon look is a little more intense, and you see it only a couple of times. You see it when he's doing his narration, like I love when he says, "When I was alive, I might have been a little naughty." You see his like very sharp fangs and everything, and then you see it when he's drowning Jason in the water, and when Laurie he knows that Laurie has something to do with Jason leaving, he just this is one of my favorite shots from the teaser, and it's kind of okay in the final film, but I thought it looked cool in the teaser where he like just levitates out of the water. Like the shot I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, that Air Kruger shot.
Yeah. Whereas in the final movie, it's okay, but it's kind of ruined by the colors shifting, and there's like that ripple effect over it. But in the trailer, you can see it unaltered, and it just looked cool to me seeing him just like float out of there that way. And then like I said though, Freddy still has that humor of his, like when he was when they're not helping to give him a hand. Hey, it's not my fault. This bitch is dead on her feet. Stuff like that. Like, actually, I think of all the movies, this one has the most use of the word bitch from Freddy. I think.
Yeah, seems to be like it kind of makes me think of like Scary Terry from Rick and Morty. Is always uses the word bitch in every sentence he says.
Even Rick, wow, he sure seems to use that word a lot.
I'm Scary Terry, bitch.
Yeah, I think he did say it the most in this movie, and maybe that's where the writers for that got that joke. Like, yeah, he does say it every now and then in the other ones, like the most famous one being "Welcome to Primetime." But other than that, yeah, I think he said it the most in this movie. And hell, I think one of the more funnier ones to me was when he possesses Freeburg, and he has that plan to like knock out Jason so he can like fight him in the dream world. And the guy's like, "Come over here." He's like, "Let me handle this, bitch." It just makes me laugh every time I see it. Oh, fun fact: the guy who played the um uh, the sheriff, I think his name was Stoogie, the rookie. I mean, the new guy. He
Yeah,
ended up he was in uh uh Jason Takes Manhattan. In fact, I think
really
he was
now.
yeah, I think he was the guy that threw Ken. I think. Oh no, because Kane is there, and so is Ken. But he did have a part in there too, and now here he is being the guy being electrocuted by Jason. It's just a fun little factoid. But oh my, I like that sheriff guy. I kind of wish he stayed along longer because it's nice. It's refreshing to have an adult believe the teens this time around and be with them on their side. Because most of the time it's like, oh, you kids, we should protect you. We know better. But here's the one guy that says, you guys might be right because this looks like a copycat of the Crystal Lake killings from 1980, stuff like that. He did his homework on Jason. Oh, another great line I remembered when after the farm massacre where Freeburg's like, man, that goalie was pissed about something.
Yeah, oh, don't worry. That he always gets that way whenever someone brings up like, "Hey, didn't you go to hell at one point?"
But yeah, so the the actual fight itself, because yeah, the dream fight is amazing. Also, fun fact: those metal poles that are hitting Jason deeper into the thing he's impaled on are actually the same parts they used to make the New Line Cinema logo.
That's clever.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun little things in this movie. It's not high art, it's not profound or mind blowing, but it is fun, especially if you're a fan of both franchises. And it's allowed to get away with little oddities like that. And um, so
So
what's
I feel like we could also bring up how people did have a problem with the fact that all of a sudden Jason has this aversion to water when literally he's never had that problem to begin with. But did, didn't he though? I feel like we should look back, remember the fact that he, at one point, his origin is all about him almost drowning, for starters, and that literally caused it kind of caused his mother to go snap and caused her to go on an Achilles spree, which eventually led to her head being cut off, and apparently Jason was able to see that happen. But also, the movies before Jason Goes to Hell happened, Jason really didn't have a really good track record before. Let's see, Tommy chained him up to a rock and had him trapped in the lake at first, and then our Diet Carrie literally summoned her father from the lake to drag Jason back in there. And oh goodness, let's not even talk about the sewage system in freaking New York City.
That is a weird. That'll always be the weirdest way they stop Jason to me.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure at this point Jason's kind of gotten in his head. It's like, yeah, maybe I really shouldn't mess with this. I haven't really had a good track record with this.
Well, thankfully he seemed to got over that fear when he fights in the real world again. Huh. Anyway, but yeah, that is the. I love that one point where Laurie brings that up. Wait, Freddy was killed by fire, Jason by water. Maybe we can use that to our advantage. Oh, and I do like that when Freddy does come back into the real world, pulled by Laurie, and he realizes he's in the real world where he could be hurt. I like how he looks a little fearfully at the fire first. He's like, "Oh crap, I've been here before." Yeah, but let's say also it is a shame that the line from the trailer is only in the deleted scenes where she brings him up into the room and says, "Freddy versus Jason, place your bets." Like that's. I think she wished they kept it in the movie, man.
But
But
yeah, we have the second fight, which is on Camp Crystal Lake grounds, which is pretty vexing fight for Freddy, considering the fact that he doesn't have his magical hoodoo powers to fling crap at Jason. So now he's gotta all of a sudden learn how to do a hard style, on the street curb style, like kicks and punches.
it is funny to see that Freddy does have a fighting style. Maybe he picked up some stuff when maybe when he was in hell, he spent a couple of times in another realm and learned a few things from Hanzo.
Well, then again, he also did kind of had that fight with Alice's brother in part 4.
Oh yeah, and hell, he's fought a couple of karate masters himself. Yeah. So okay, maybe he picked up a few things. I know, but yeah. On top of that, uh, he still has his.
The man the torpedoes. Of course, there's an ad lib line. Of course, Robert would pull that off.
You gotta admit though, that's one of my favorite parts of the fight, man. That Freddy, whether it be in the dream world or in the real world, always uses the environment to his advantage. So I like how he pretty much home alones Jason most of the time. And oh man, when they finally get to the dock, that's when all the blood budget is used. When James Rolfe made a point about this. If he didn't know these guys were two undead monsters from a horror front, as if he was watching it raw as a new person, he'd be like, "What the fuck am I even watching?" Because they're just blood and sinew, just flying all over in the end when they're in the dock. And for some reason, that is like one of my favorite moments in the movie is when after he gouges Jason's eyes out and the music takes an intense cue, all of a sudden the fire surrounds him and Jason just sticks his fist into Freddy's side and they're just literally pulling each other apart while the dramatic musical thing just swells and you're like, well, hell, I think one of the posters made a joke as a reference to Texas Chainsaw saying, "Who will survive and what will be left of them?"
Oh, but then we also get that big brutal beatdown that Freddy gets, where he's just hacked and slashed and like chunked up to bits.
And then he does a reverse Uno and cuts off Jason's fingers. And even Jason does a moment where he actually looks at his own hand like, huh.
Well, that's new.
Yeah, I do like that bit because Ronnie, he said he wanted to compare it to like a Rocky fight where it's like on one round this person's up and another this guy's down. He didn't
Oh
want to
yeah,
be like,
and also in a Rocky fight, there's also sweat that's profusely going on across these two guys' faces. And they got sweat and blood, all right.
at least it's not the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat.
Poof, poof.
But
The dudes just started fighting. They're already knocking out profuse sweat.
yeah, but oh man, like I says, yeah, it's funny. There's a point where after Freddy gets knocked out by a box, and he's on the dock, Jason just keeps hacking at him, and he's like, like getting blood, but you think, okay, he's probably done for. Then he reverse Unos by cutting off Jason's fingers, and then he gets Jason's machete and just starts beating him to death with his own machete. And like I said, I love that bit where he gouges his eyes out, and then he just drives his fist into Freddy, pulls his arm out. Freddy takes out the machete and just puts it in Jason's center of his chest. And if I had to wallpaper any frame from the movie, it'd be that frame where they're both like just locked in Mortal Kombat with blood everywhere. Like that's just like the shot for me.
Yeah, because this is literally what we came here to see, isn't it? Like these two, like hardcore horror icons just going at each other mercilessly.
And now that I say that, I'm so sad that NetherRealm was never able to get Freddy and Jason together in a game for Mortal Kombat. Like imagine them in the MK11 or 1 engine.
Oh my god.
And
You know what I'm pissed about more? The fact that they never had Freddy, at least in the Mortal Kombat X, where like they started adding in the combat pre-fight dialogue. Oh, the
yeah.
things he would have said.
Yeah. But who knows? Like I says, Robert may not want to do the makeup, but if Ed Boon can convince him to like be the motion capture and voice for Freddy, well, they got Van Damme, so I think anything's possible. I mean, they managed to get Peter Weller and Sylvester Stallone out of retirement to reprise their characters faithfully. But anyway, oh man, so what's funny is that there's an explosion, and I think that it felt like, oh, we don't want to do the whole, and every Versus movie, just about every Versus movie, I pointed out to Derek, and he said, wait, you're right. If they don't want to have a clear winner, they always throw both opponents into water. It happened in Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, I think, where the Wolfman and Dracula fall into the water.
King Kong versus Godzilla, they throw it in the water.
Thank God Godzilla versus Kong as a clear winner, but yeah, it's so funny how often they did that, and we thought it was going to happen again with Freddy and Jason both being blown into the lake of Crystal Lake, and then Freddy shows up for one last scare where you see a machete and you think, oh wait, Jason's come back for them, and you see that it's one-armed Freddy clinging onto life barely, and then Jason just
from out of nowhere, Jason comes in with his own fucking arm through my chest.
He impales Freddy with his own glove.
And he's like, and I'm spent. Blah.
And he gets decapitated in epic style. And it's so funny how Monica Keeley in the Camp Crystal Lake Diaries talks about how she felt that her and Jason really had a moment, like when she returns his machete and they look at each other. So she got a little miffed. I mean, it's played for comedy in the editing when they say, well, we didn't have to hard to tell her that Jason actually kills Laurie and Will in the opening act of the next script that was made into a comic. And he goes, Jason did what? Oh, well, screw Jason. Yeah, it is almost serene when after all the death and battles happen and Jason's barely in the water, she just hands back the machete. And you think, well, that's the end of things. And oh, but you know what? Before we mention how it actually ends, we should probably talk about what almost happened with that lake. There's a point where the lake turned into a huge vortex of like a tornado and and stuff, and the forces of hell would have been involved. that a lot of stuff could have happened at the end, but budget and time really got in the way. So the first alternate ending is where Laurie and Will seem to be getting it on finally after a while, and then turns out he's possessed by the spirit of Freddy, and Ronnie didn't,
Sciences didn't take that very well.
because it felt like, well, Freddy won in the end anyway, and it didn't feel like desirable after what we just witnessed. So they came up with the ending we did get, which it wasn't even Ken, it was another stuntman, but he was in the Jason makeup running out of the lake with Freddy's head in tow. But Freddy winks at the camera, so
Ending with the sinister tune of Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy cackling, but then also you hear the Pamela Voorhees
Killer Mommy, yeah.
killer mommy instinct thing.
What's funny is that it's almost like epic.
We almost had one other cool alternate ending, which I think that would have made a fucking movie. That would have made people get really excited. We would have paid out the wazoo for any follow up.
Yeah, where originally, Freddy, they get drained down the lake like a toilet bowl, basically. And Laurie's father shows up to say how he's going to properly destroy Freddy's glove to get rid of him. When Freddy's hand grabs out of the sand, grabs the father by the leg, it just noodles him into the tiny hole as they watch horrifically. And so, but when he's in heck, he gets his glove back together, and Jason is there, and they're about to go at it again when these chains, lock him up, and then D. Bradley Baker as Pinhead would come out saying, "Gentlemen, what appears to be the problem?"
Actually, it's Doug Bradley.
Doug Bradley. Sorry, I got my Clone Wars mixed with my Hellraiser. Sorry, but the point is, Pinhead from Hellraiser was going to be the Stinger character, but either the studio said, Pinhead, is he really that big of a draw? Or rights issues of even getting it wouldn't come to pass. But everybody knows about the famous Pinhead showing up to Freddy and Jason saying, "What's the hell's going on here? Or what's the problem?" To some variation. And there wasn't even another ending that would have been too expensive to produce, where Freddy, it's basically the same thing, but Freddy and Jason show up in a gladiator arena surrounded by the denizens of hell with Satan himself watching from a throne. But that would have been too expensive to do, they said. But like you said, if they did the Pinhead ending, ooh.
That would have been it. That would have been like the surefire way to have a huge slasher verse.
Although the closest we're going to have to get is the Blinky verse with his recreations of what was that? The Nightmare Ends on Halloween, I think.
Yeah, parts 1 and 2.
Oh god, those were amazing fan made productions. They're up there with the main entries, if you ask me. Yeah, it's so funny how a lot of it does take cues from Freddy versus Jason and stuff like that. In fact, it's kind of sad that it is at once the biggest crossover event, yet it's seldom talked about. And if it is, usually brought up derisively, like, "Oh, that was a cheap thing," but it's a good one. I actually think it's a pretty good one. Is it as good as the heights of the franchise before? Well, your mileage may vary, but it's definitely better than any of the worst. I'm sure Derek would choose to watch this any time over Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah, definitely.
It is sad because it really does feel like the end of an era with that movie, because it is the last time Robert properly played the makeup in full physicality, and it's the last time we had a proper Jason movie until they did attempt to reboot him in 2009, and then sadly that would be the last time we ever saw him ever before legal problems became an issue. It's almost been 13 plus years since Jason's donned the screens, but it's kind of weird that they had to put Jason back in the lake because they had to keep continuity with Jason X. Who cares at that point? But oh man, like I said though, it really is a fun film. You can tell that the creators were definitely fans of both franchises to really play into it. Now, in your view, Does it play more like a Nightmare film guest starring Jason, or is it like a Jason film guest starring Freddy, or is it like what we said, it's a good mixture of both, you think?
It's a good mixture of both.
Hmm. So, any other favorite moments of note or anything you want to bring up real quick?
Anything else?
Yeah, just anything that comes to mind. Hmm.
Uh, I guess the soundtrack to it.
Oh yeah, this is one of those other albums inspired by movies. It does have a bitchin' rock soundtrack, but although I remember me and my sister listening to the song El Nino's "How Can I Live Without You," and we're saying, okay, this is a nice song, but how does this connect to Freddy or Jason in any way? But I mean, the lyrics keep saying we carry the same stain and we're one and the same, and there is a verse that says, "Do you think of me? Do you dream of me? Because I'm always dreaming about you." But it is the loosest connection of why or how. I still think the best in any of the franchises song that captures its character would be "The Man Behind the Mask" by Alice Cooper. Because I almost made that the song for this video, but I think that has a higher chance of getting copy stricken. um, but I also do like the soundtrack itself, the Graham Revell's moody, tense, almost operatic theme that he does for the series. But also it does bring in the classic Harry Manfredi sounds like the Kiki Mama and the Nightmare Sting where it counts. Hmm.
Uh,
So, how would you say it's aged in your view?
it's still one of the best horror movies crossovers put out there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh good. I didn't hear you for a while. I thought you were disconnected, thankfully. But yeah, it is kind of sad that we never got another one quite to this size or scale. Uh,
Well, technically we did. It's just that it didn't get green light to be a movie, but the foundation for it did make for a pretty good comic adaptation
oh
of
yeah.
Freddy versus Jason versus Ash.
But wouldn't that kind of canonize the stupider aspects of Jason Goes to Hell if you think about it?
And hey, if they say at the very least that Ash Williams is involved fighting these two, it's like who cares?
Yeah, you got a point. Although the first Ash versus Ash versus Freddy versus Jason is the best view. What was the next one? Dream War. What was it called? Ash versus the Evil Dead versus Freddy versus Jason. I think was the Nightmare Warriors. Can they call that one?
No, they just call it Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, the Nightmare Warriors. Which don't ever
Ooh,
bring that up with me.
I,
Yep.
I, I yeah, like okay. All I will say is that it does attempt to bring the lore of both the Nightmare and the Friday movies together, even bringing back survivors. But the art is all over the place. It doesn't really convey stuff well. How some of the characters are supposed to be like young age, but they have like the bodies of the voluptuous 20s. And they do we're not going to even get into detail because they'll just infuriate Derek, but they do a character heel turn that is so out of nowhere and so stupid that, if Derek actually owned a copy of the book, he probably would have just dropped it right there and chucked it in the fire.
Yep.
But yeah, but the other one is not a bad because the art's decent. Ash acts in character, and Jason and Freddy for the most part. Oh, also they have the stupid effect of government experiments somehow making Jason intelligent, and, and Freddy's plan is just yeah, it's a bigger mess, and it's weird that it came from the same people who wrote the script that became that for the movie, the unused movie that ended up becoming the thing. Although I think it would have been cool if Bruce Campbell had agreed to do a movie where Ash got to fight these two guys back in the
Yeah.
2000s. Although I think
Coulda,
now,
woulda, shoulda.
I think nowadays Bruce admits that his days of wearing a chainsaw are well behind him. I think he said. Although he might have one shot, because Harrison Ford still gets back in the saddle every now and then. And I'm sure if the script or idea is enticing enough, Bruce
There,
might step
there
up.
is, there is a talk about making an animated Fallout 2.
Ooh, and I think, and that's another weird thing. I think an anthology animation thing with the nightmare characters would work as a cool idea because you can get really creative with nightmares in animation form. Because, like, imagine a nightmare movie animated in the style of Coraline.
Whoa.
Because sadly, as of this day, both franchises are kind of on ice, either for legal reasons or they're still working out stuff. But there is talks of a Freddy re- reboot sequel, like that follows up the first one that's coming down the line. Uh, and like I said, Jason's finally gotten out of development hell with those legal issues finally settled. So maybe we'll see that machete swing once again. But what is sad about that legal stuff is that it killed all the DLC plans for what was going to be in the Friday the 13th game, including a Jason X level and skin, which was made but never properly released because it was, still in the beta and all that stuff. But like as Bruce Campbell himself put it regarding MK11, legal crap. But I think we might get another. Here's the thing: if they properly reboot Nightmare series and the Friday series, you think there'd ever be another shot at trying this stunt again?
The fight.
Yeah, trying a Freddy versus Jason in another medium.
I mean, we kind of already got that. It would be kind of pointless to even build up to it again.
Yeah, yeah, I see your point. So point is, you had to have been there, and thank our blessed stars we were there for this moment being such a thing. I'm sure for the people who've been fans since the '80s, to finally see these two come together must have been like, you know, pardon the phrase, a dream come true for some people. And like I said, it's not exactly high art, not the best movie, but it's serviceable, it's watchable, and it actually does promise you what's on the poster. It doesn't make Freddy versus Jason be a thing for like the last 5 minutes. It's actually a good chunk of the third part of the finale, at least. And as weird as it is to say it, it doesn't have all the sleaze of some of the worst entries of the Friday series. Hmm. Oh, so yeah, so I think we want, like I said, we wanted to commemorate this Friday the 13th. Wanted to commemorate the anniversaries of these movies, even if they're to dig so begrudgingly for It Goes to Hell. But hopefully you enjoy your Fridays. Tomorrow will be that eclipse coming into view, so hopefully you'll get an enjoyment of that. Also, your personal idea. Who did you think won that? If going just off the movies, who do you think won the movie in the end?
Freddy, considering the fact that he still managed to get at least just a little bit of fear out to at least get out of hell.
Hmm. If we're going by last man standing rules, I'd probably say Jason was the last guy that physically standing, but I think Freddy got a lot of hit licks in. So if we had to go by technicalities, maybe by technical points, I think Freddy got a few more. And even though Jason had the higher kill count in this movie, there was this old video we watched where someone was reviewing it with the voice changer, and they have a funny line that'll never leave our mind, where he says it's like the biggest clash in slasher flick history, and he's got a reputation. So my pick is Jason. Congratulations, Jason, on your win, but here you win a free complimentary pack of Halloween pumpkin condoms from Ace Dalton. Like for some reason, that line forever stuck in our mind. It's one of the funniest things ever. So um, I have to side saying that I think Jason won in a sense, but you're right. Freddy's laugh just turns the whole thing into another question, and then the follow up comics give you that the struggle still goes on. So but yeah, Freddy vs. Jason, it's on HBO Max right now if you're a Max subscriber. Sorry, Max, my bad. Max subscriber. So you guys can check it out. And if you want to probably perish a few brain cells, watch Goes to Hell too if you want. I probably will. Alrighty then. So I guess that's all we have to wrap up in a while. Uh, there's a lot of good horror stuff coming out in October. We already got The Exorcist Believer, The Nun 2. We have Five Nights at Freddy's finally coming to the screen in a few weeks.
Saw 10. You have to go see Saw 10. I'm
Saw X is
throwing it
just
out there.
Ooh, Saw X. Now, I think I know it's stupid to even conceive of like Freddy or Jason in a Saw scenario, given that they're both two undead monsters that can't really die. But who would be more funner watching go through the Saw games?
I don't know. Cause, like, what would be the exciting reason why they should win or not?
You got a point. Yeah, you got a point. Yeah, yeah. But it'd just be so funny. But yeah, so Saw. There's a couple of great recommendations for Halloween this October. And like I said, it's very rare to have a Friday the 13th on in October every so often. So that's why I have to jump at the chance. So well, thank you guys for hearing us ramble, because this has been a ramble. Any other thoughts you want to give, Derek?
Hmm?
Any other thoughts you want to give?
Nope, that's it.
All right then. Well, that's the way it's been. That's the way it's always be. And uh, trying to think of a witty end off line to go off on, because there's a few that they have. Um, oh God, well, there was one line from Freddy vs. Jason. It's just that Freddy says it's actually pretty funny. I'm trying to remember it now. Mm, dang it. Uh,
It's slow. You got no style.
oh yeah, the way and oh God, I forgot to bring up the build up, but yeah. Alrighty then. All right then. Well, y'all take care and have a good evening.